Oh boy, my sound quality's pretty rough. You know what? Let me hook in these real quick. After this, I'm splitting to go, so. There, that's better. We'll be starting in a second. I haven't looked at the models at all this morning, so. Shoot, hang on a second. We're starting in just a second. Alright, good morning everybody. I'm just doing a quick briefing on the latest regarding the severe weather threat for today. I'm going to be heading out to go chasing pretty soon. But I'm just looking at the models for the first time, so I figured might as well just go live and kind of break down what I'm seeing. And that way, you guys can also have an idea of what's going on as well. So this just came out, brand new from the SPC Storm Prediction Center. There is an enhanced risk for severe weather targeting southeastern Michigan, the extreme portion of eastern Indiana, and then northern Ohio is included in that as well. Also parts of Pennsylvania. Pretty much the Lake Erie region is kind of in this region, or kind of facing this threat. So you do have a slight risk across much of the state of Ohio still, and much across Indiana and Michigan. So pretty much the entirety of the Great Lakes region, with the exception of the Upper Peninsula, is at play today. So there is a lot that's going to be going on. Pretty active day for severe weather across the entirety of the Great Lakes region. As always, if you have a comment, feel free to leave it for questions. This is a YouTube only for today, so only be checking on your guys' comments. So we're going to be looking at all the different models regarding this threat. We're going to start with the HRRR, just because it kind of gives a good idea on the starting point here. I'm going to go to the latest model run, which is this one, 12Z, and we're going to just take a look at exactly what is happening with regards to this setup. So it does show some initializing thunderstorms across the northern part of Michigan. That is actually already happening, because if you look at current radar, let me pull up radar scope real quick. So here you can see the radar. This is for southern Illinois, so please don't pay attention to that. Let's go to the actual radar for this area. You can see there's already some thunderstorms firing across parts of northern Michigan. That is something that is consistent with the models as well. This looks like a pretty strong storm just north of Ludington at this point. Got some mesocyclonic spin in there, but those storms are firing across northern Michigan. Those storms could pack some strength to them, but I don't think they'll be as strong as the storms. Basically, in this area around here is kind of the major threat zone for intense hail, damaging winds, maybe a couple isolated tornadoes. This is kind of the main target area for today. So, and then I will also be trekking on areas down in this region as well. This is kind of my ranged area for chasing today. I'm staying out of Detroit. You cannot get around in Detroit, and Toledo as well, but pretty much areas around here, south of the main city areas, and then this open area. Right here is probably going to be the place where I really focus on, because there is a lot of open area there, and the models have really been depicting some pretty strong storms around this region here as well. So that's all kind of on the table, but you can see that there's really nothing on radar, and that is actually something that the SPC is waiting on, to see how much convection would fire across this region here. And you can see a few rain showers across northern Indiana, northern Ohio, but I really don't think those are going to hamper any of the severe threat that we're going to have across this region at all, because they are relatively weak and they are not showing any signs of strengthening. So that's your morning convection there, but it's not enough to really foster a dangerous threat. So what time will this all move through northern Indiana? Well, let's take a look at that right now. We're going to track right through with all of the information regarding this. Now, I will say, though, the models are depicting a few hours of separation between the events. So one model saying, oh, it's going to hit at this time, while another model says, oh, it's going to hit at this time. So keep that in mind as we go through this. But here's 1 p.m. You do have some storms across parts of central Michigan at this current point. And you do have those severe parameters in place for some stronger storms. Although these cloud bases for these storms could be relatively more elevated. If you get closer to the cell for a sounding, I think it'll probably show different. Yeah, the cloud bases do get lower as you get closer. But we'll have enough instability by about 1 p.m. today for storms to fire, and you can see that storms may begin to fire along this boundary around 2 p.m. And then 3 p.m. you've got stronger cells across eastern parts of Michigan. Marginal tornado potential, elevated cloud bases, not really much storm relative felicity. Uh-oh, hang on just 1 second, everybody. Sorry about that, guys. All right, I am back. Okay, so here we have marginal tornado potential for these cells that are popping up across parts of eastern Michigan. So could see a few spin-up tornadoes today. Wouldn't be surprised to see a couple. Again, for some of these storms, the storm relative felicity is going to be pretty low. You're not really going to have as much spin, but you still have that potential present because there is going to be some mid-level and upper-level wind strength to these storms as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a few of those storms maybe produce a couple tornado warnings maybe. And then you see that these storms begin to fire and kind of continue off to the east. You do have these little storms that fire across northwestern Ohio as well. And it looks like you have some robust cells across Indiana that take off a little bit as well. But again, keep in mind the instability will not be as great in this area. But progressing it forward as we get into about 5 p.m., you see that there's a nice line of storms popping up across northwestern Ohio, packing severe potential, Cape values of 2450. You do see that North Indiana seems to be missing out on quite a bit of this activity. So it looks like there might be a few pop-up strong thunderstorms there, but again, this is just one model. We're going to look at 3 models today before I begin with stuff. But marginal tornado potential present with some of these cells, especially in areas such as northern Ohio, Cleveland area. Could be in a bigger threat zone for severe weather today. But here's what the HRRR model depicts. Storms continuing through about dying out in western Ohio around 9 p.m. Doesn't even look like there will be storms in western Ohio during that time, but they will. They might progress down to central Indiana. So I think the play is to touch on these storms as they pass through Adrian region and then cut south quickly down to these storms and arrive at them by about 5, and I think I'll make it. So it looks like I'll be able to get on those storms. But again, this is just one model depicting what could possibly be occurring. So let's move to NAM3K now, because the NAM is a little bit different. The NAM's depicting a couple cells out in front of the storm at about 1 p.m., and it's depicting a much earlier arrival of the cold front. Or much later arrival, I mean. Yeah, it's depicting storms firing way up here in northern Michigan at about 1 p.m. You get a sounding ahead of those. See that marginal sphere potential. Progressing it forward, you still have storms that are kind of firing along this boundary line. Definitely not looking as intense, though. But here, as we get into the afternoon hours, you can see that storms are going to fire even across northern Indiana, southern Michigan. So the confusion amongst the models really is cause for wondering how exactly this day is going to unfold. But tornado potential seems to maximize around 6 p.m., 7 p.m. across central Indiana, according to this model. 7 p.m. you get those stronger storms across northwestern Ohio, and they continue to the south through about 10 p.m., 11 to 12. So that raises questions as to where the storms are really going to initialize. But also, one thing to point out is that the NAM depicted these storms dying out, which they are not. They are definitely strengthening. So the HRRR definitely seems to have a better handle on those storms. NAM also does not depict any convection down here, which is further cause for wondering whether the NAM is an outlier. But let's compare it to the RFS real quick. RFS sort of does depict these cells that are coming across the lake right now just north of Ludington, and it depicts some intensification going on with them, packing some marginal severe potential. Let me see if there's any questions here. Yeah, enhanced risks around northern Ohio usually kind of don't amount to too much. I think that has a lot to do with the lake, but you never know. Anything can happen with these sorts of setups. All right, so RFS seems to be following a little bit kind of in between the NAM and the HRRR, but you do see a bunch of cells firing across southern Indiana, southeastern Michigan, and then a lot of intensification around 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. across northwestern Ohio. There's your marginal severe potential. But those are your low pressure systems. That's your low pressure system right there with all the associated cells as well. Enhanced risk, again, is for this region right here. All right, let's pull up radar scope again. So based on what I'm seeing on the models, I think I'm going to kind of stick with my original target plan. Kind of the Adrian area. Though I might wait over here out by Somerset, because then I could just cut south, head west, east, or north right here. That might be an option. And then I could just cut down to the toll road if I need to. But the plan is to definitely start in this general region here later this afternoon. Cut south down towards Lima and Findlay, those regions where those storms look to be pretty strong. Kind of settle there for the line of convective development that will occur right here. Head down to the southeast, follow these storms as they continue to dissipate, and then kind of end near the Dayton region. Not really going to go too far east. If the farthest east I'll go is Columbus. Because by the time you get out here, you start to see an increase in hills and mountains and not great terrain. We'll have to see how this evolves as we get into this setup. But that's kind of just the basic overview. I just want to do it real quick. I'm going to have to end the stream here for now, but it'll be available. I'm going to start chasing later this afternoon, so stay tuned for